Welcome back, you guys. This part 3 will make a lot more sense if you watch the FAM and then the daisy chain. I'll do a quick recap, but I don't want to be redundant, so we're moving forward. There's a lot of codes and a lot of information that is just, it's too kind of boring to cover again, but you can follow along if you haven't watched these parts, but if you watch them, it'll make much more sense. So what I'm going to jump into, well, let me tell you first, part 1 would be the FAM and part 2 is the daisy chain. So check those out in that order. In parts 1 and 2, I discussed with you guys how FAM, F being the 6th letter, A being the 1st letter, M being the 13th letter, equals the code 613, and it equals 94. So 94 is shorthand code for the FAM, or pi, or many of the other things that I discuss in the other videos. FAM, which is short for Mafia, also has a great deal with what's going on at Paisley Park. So that's what we're talking about. Now, because 94 is code for the family, 94, as I discussed in part 1, is significant to all of these dates that you see in front of you regarding the breakdown and when the clone imitation prints started being used, and everything that was done in the Paisley Park cover-up can be coded out to 94. We discussed in parts 1 and 2 why it had to do with the watchtower and it being a cover, working in cahoots with Paisley Park to disguise the creator as the Antichrist. It's a very deep cover, deeper than any one that you've ever heard about before. We discussed their witchcraft symbology and occult messages hidden within the Watchtower White Power magazine. We talked about the Enochian alphabet, Hebrew letters, and all the gematria behind the codes that I'm giving today, which is why parts 1 and 2 are so important. Talked about how P is the 16th letter in the alphabet and I is the 9th letter. So when you take these gematria codes, the pi equals 314, the family code also spells the word opioid, or ID 19. Because World War I was in 1914 and World War II in 1939, it's all part of the 9-4 code. As well, I explained to you guys how the 1914 code extended itself to 1916. Because if you take the word opioid, which I just showed you in letters, if you take pi being the 16th letter and the 9th letter, and then it spells opioid. And then I explained how the ID 19 could be a 1619 as well, in reverse. So when we ended part 2, we were talking about the code 1916 and how it was relevant in Asia and Haleakela volcano in Maui. We discussed how the 1916 code extends itself to Paisley Park having opened on 9/11/1987, as well as this infamous picture of the entry corridor that was posted on 1/9/87, giving us the same code, 1916. You have to watch the other parts to figure it out. So remember, whether you're seeing 9/11, 16, 96, 1916, or 1619, or ID 19, it's all a version of the same thing. Now let me show you how that's applicable to Asia and Haleakala volcano in Maui. Couple pictures of Haleakala from when I was there in August of 2019. It was quite an experience being up in the clouds. It was so strange that it felt fake. And when I was standing up there 10,023 feet in the air, this is what I had to say. Okay, so here we are at 10,023 feet. Check it out. Pardon my heavy breathing, because, yeah. So here we are in a volcano, I think,
10,000 feet up. You see how we are in the clouds, but we're up above them in this cool place.
I wanted to share that with you guys because when I was there, like I said, it felt fake to me. And I said, in this cool place, and I said, here we are on a volcano, I think. So it struck me as really odd when I went, you know, since I've had all this happen to me, that I felt when I was standing there, just being in the clouds and standing there, it didn't feel quite real. So don't worry, you guys, I haven't lost my mind. I'm going to bring it all together. When I was in the afterlife, one of the things the Creator told me was that He was going to make sure that I went to Maui, because I still can't put my finger on it because He hasn't helped me with the exact explanation, that somehow creation, something has to do with Maui. And that's why Maui in reverse is I am, why I was able to relate it to the 808 in the other videos. 808 equals 16, which is pi, and so many other things which we're going to talk about, because what I'm going to do is make it make sense to you why the volcano Haleakela is important. It's a biosphere, you guys. The government claimed it as their own after this Wilkes exploration, which I'm going to show you. But the point is, since 1980, I believe it's been a biosphere, which means the government has complete control of it. They also, I don't know if all of you know that Hawaii, Maui, it's a naval base out there. So it allows them to practice lots of holographics, and it's the most reclusive island, you know, I believe, that's habitable, I think, or something like that. It's so far away from everything. And remember this is important. I noticed this from looking back at my pictures. The people, the visitors, the tourists with 89 flowers on their back, the inventors of the AccuJack, they use it as their playground. And if you're visiting there, and things were being done that weren't supposed to be done, such as holographics or worse practices, you're going to be able to go unnoticed by the public because people aren't there for very long, and because a short lesson on Maui, you know, the kings and queens over there were overthrown, and the American government came in, I believe in the late 1800s, and took over and made them sign over all their education and land, and started saying that they could own private land when that's God, Hashem's land, and nobody should be able to own it the way that they did. It turned it into a naval base, growing pineapples and sugar, and importing to the U.S. and then claiming it to be a U.S. state. So it's all very relevant to what I'm saying, and it's relevant to the 9/4 code, because Pearl Harbor bombing from the Asian Japan, I think it was, in 1941, which I discussed in part 2, is part of the code, the 9/4. So the volcano, the biosphere, the land, the reclusiveness, the fact that you can't take seashells or sand or any objects off the land out there, it's all very heavily controlled. And so yeah, it's really relevant, you guys, and I just wanted to take a moment to explain it to you. And now I'm gonna explain to you a little bit more about Haleakala in the 1916 in the Asia connection. So thank you. It says most people experience the Hawaii spiritual vortex, the spiritual places in Hawaii, as otherworldly, physically and metaphysically, like no other place on earth. And it's true. If you're unaware, Hawaii is way out here in the middle of the ocean. I flew from Michigan to California and then out to Maui. Interesting to note that it's halfway between the United States over here and Asia over here. Some of the most sacred sites they advertise are Haleakela National Park, the volcano we spoke about. That's their #1 sacred spot. What's really interesting is that this plant, called the silver sword, grows only on Haleakela volcano. Scientific name if you care to try to pronounce it. The signs tell us that the silver sword was once near extinction due to human vandalism and browsing by goats and cattle. And of course it recovered when the government took control, making it a biosphere, an international biosphere. The relevance of this plant to the situation we're talking about is that it makes the drug DMT. That's right, trippin' DMT. These plants only flower once every 50 years, and this one was in full bloom when I was there in 2019, August. So that pretty special plant only grows in this one place on Earth, high up above the clouds, where the government controls it and nobody can get to it. Thing is, when I Google Earthed it in 2020, the plant looked to be harvested, and that becomes very relevant in the future portion of the videos when we get to talking about MK Ultra and what the DMT and drugs and psychedelics are used for and how it affects Paisley Park. Now you can see old big brother NASA up there with their telescopes on the summit of Haleakela, and everything is nice and controlled, as you can see. Hashem's earth, their control. Why is that? Oh, I know, because they're trying to help us. They say because the summit is so high, it helps them see, into the constellations and the studying of NASA. But you know how I feel about them. NASA, Satan, Santa, it's all make-believe. Of course, the government with the 13 stripes, 13th Merovingian bloodline, wants us to believe that it's all for our protection. So anyway, 5 sacred sites. Haleakela is number 1. Another place is this Io Valley. I also went there. It's very beautiful. Here's one of my pictures. This is that valley. There's me. This is rated number 5, Hula Circle and Kula. It's something to do with these trees and talking about it says there used to be a hula circle of trees planted in front of King's Cottage, what is now something vineyards. Yeah, the vineyards that we went to celebrate the arrival of the merry monarch King David Kalukahua. But in later years, when the trees were destroyed in a storm, an artist carved statues in a circle out of their remains. So, yep, I went there too. See, here's my picture I took of those carvings. Listen, when you're in Maui, like I said, it's a pretty big illusion coming from where I come from. The fact that I was able to attend all of these sacred places and more is a huge blessing that was bestowed on me so that I could connect with the Creator even more in this sacred place. Look at it. Some of the flowers. Gazebo. The walkway at Wailea Resorts. Took a boat out to go snorkeling and on a submarine. Saw a shark. Saw a baby turtle while we were snorkeling. Went down on the Nautilus. I'm sorry, the Atlantis, my bad.
Rails awash. 070, 180 feet out. Start coming around and do it.
Now, what I want to point out to you guys, because I mentioned holographics earlier, everyone pictures Hawaii, Maui as this, wonderful place, and it is that I'm showing you. But when you look across here, there is also a ton of barren land where you can do a lot of things. And I have so many pictures of this stuff. And that's why I say that, let me show you. I think I talked about some of this in my other video, so I'm going to leave that for another time. The one that is about electricity, Maui, and Prince Rogers Nelson. So I talked about the holographics being practiced on the water there. This is just a pretty shot of the marina that I took. You guys, my point is this. I visited the 7 sacred pools, these waterfalls. I took all these pictures. It was just, look at the bridge up there. Like, Can you imagine taking this in with your eyes, your ears, your soul, all the energy that's there? Because like I said, it has to do with where the Creator created in the beginning. I don't know how and why yet, but it does. You can see I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Soaking it in deep into the soul. Stopped by this black sand beach. I can't remember what beach it was, but I didn't get in that water because it was way too rough looking for me. We went through the rainforest portion on the road to Hana. Experienced sunsets like you've never seen before in your life. There's me experiencing the sunset.
Paisley Renee, you better come witness.
Check this out. Look at this. You know, it gets dark there about 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. Well, their time, but it's like 6-hour difference between Michigan and there. Had great burgers at Peggy Sue's. Do you see what I mean about everything looking unreal? Long story longer, you become blissfully connected with the Creator while you're there, and you realize that there's something more to life than what's presented to us by media, TV, social media. So myself, I took the opportunity when I was there to meditate on the beach under the stars. After I laid down on the beach and meditated, this is a picture. I knew something in my life had changed and that the Creator was talking to me in a deeper, more meaningful way. All I could say was thank you over and over again. I was blissed out with the sacred energy. You guys, it exists and it's real, and for that reason, Haleakela is a biosphere which can be controlled by the government. I mentioned earlier, after the Wilkes U.S. exploring expedition investigated the area in 1841, word spread about the beauty of this park, Haleakela. People came from all over the world to hike the summit. Tourist interest in the area was the primary force responsible for the area becoming a national park in 1916 and an international biosphere reserve in 1980. You guys, Wilkes in reverse mirror writing appears very much to me like milk. Got milk? Everything is an illusion. Everything. If you add the 1 and the 8, that's 9, 9, 4, same code. The other one is disposable because ones are disposable. Anyway, 1841 to me is 9-4 code. Why is this relevant, you guys? The word Haleakela actually means house of the sun. That is the meaning of the name, okay? So remember that. Haleakela means house of the sun. The Japanese flag has a red sun in the middle with 16 rays. So we're still talking about the 1916 and the house of the sun.
But sit down in that chair right there and let me show you how it's done. Fire on the mountain, run, boys, run. The devil's in the house of the rising sun. The devil's in the house of the rising sun. The devil's in the house of the rising sun.
The devil's in the house of the rising sun. That's the way I took it to mean. I'm going to show you a really deep meaning now about the letters that are used in the word Haleakela. But these would be the Hebrew letters, the original letters. So, He is the 5th letter, Aleph is the 1st letter, Lamed, well, I don't know what letter, but it represents 30, and then Kuf gives us the K sound. So, check this out. Here's how you spell Haleakela in Hebrew. And Hebrew reads from left to right. Not that it matters much with this word because it reads the same from left to right. And you have to remember this is in Hebrew, not English. What's relevant, and listen up please, are the numbers, the alphanumeric code to Haleakela. On each end, you have the letter He. It is worth 5. The aleph that looks like the letter N is the first letter, and it's the 1, the first letter. This letter that looks like a 5 is a lamed. It is the value of 30. The letter that looks like a P is the kuf and represents the K and Haleakela. So, in looking at this closely, you can see, reading from left to right, 5, 1, 3, 1, 3, 5. I dropped the extra ones because they're not relevant. It's like having a double vowel when you don't need one. So again, whether you're reading from left to right like Hebrew, if you read from left to right, you have 5, 1, 3. And if you read from right to left, you have 5, 1, 3. We're going to drop the center zeros. If you add 5 and 3 and 5 and 3 on each side, it gives you 808, which is the area code for Hawaii or Maui. To me, what that represented was 1318, also area 51. So again, we're going to read from left to right. 5, 1, 3. Add the 5 and the 3 on each side, you get 808. So that gives us Revelation 13:18 in the New Testament, as well as a reason to think that this might be area 51. Again, this is my thinking. You can believe it or not. When I was in the afterlife, I was shown these things, and it's just a matter of putting the puzzle pieces together in this life so that I can share it with you guys. Hopefully it's making sense for you. I had the best time of my life in Maui, you guys, but because the Creator began telling me things, it might not always make sense when you listen the first time, but if you listen and look at the proof that He's providing to me for us so that we can know the truth about our existence and how we have a Creator, that's my whole purpose for doing these videos. I know it may seem strange or be weird, and you might be wondering what all of these numbers and what Maui and Asia have to do with Prince. Let me bring your attention to the door at Paisley Park. It can be read as AI or maybe a large M if you're so inclined. It has pyramids on the roof and the mystery egg. Everything about Prince Rogers Nelson was meant to be an illusion. It was meant to be mysterious, and nobody was supposed to know anything about the things that I'm telling you until a time such as this. This is the other White House, and like I said, it is the deepest cover that the world is ever going to know. A breakdown of our very Creator and our country, America. Every generation of people has been broke down in one form or another, and this is the breakdown of our generation from 1776 to current. The Creator talks to me. He tells me these things. I do my studies over the last 3 years. It's been a constant influx of information. And to see Paisley Park from the outside, I think you could drive right past it without ever knowing about the wonders that take place within its walls. It really looks very anonymous, like an office park or a place where they would make some sort of plastic products or something. And there were purple sconces lighting it up, I remember, as we pulled up. The other big white mansion. Here's a couple of album covers from when Prince was performing with this band 94 East. 94, the code again. 94 equals 13. So 13 is a B. So it is the beast from the east, as you can see. The code 94 that represents the family also equals 13 and a B. Do you see what I'm saying? So this was his way of telling us about the beast from the east. Remember the family code 94. Opioid 314 equals pi, right up in there. So the things that I'm saying, it's divine information, and you guys want to continue to listen because it will all come together. Because 9/4 was part of the code, and 1914 was World War I, 1939 was World War II, Pearl Harbor bombing was 1941. I believe, from what I remember, is it was some kind of preparation to make Hawaii and Maui what it is undercover. You guys, the fact that it became a national park in 1916, the same code that we're talking about, the code for Asia, the code for ID 19, the rising sun. This is the house of the rising sun. More than that, I want to quickly go over something again. The letters that are used to build the word Haleakela, Aleph, He, Lamed, and Kuf. Now, instead of, as I said here, the Kuf is the one that looks like a P. However, down here, when you look at the word that looks like a P, pay, they don't use that because it's a kuf, not a pay. But the word P for pay is 80 or 800, which is also 808, which is part of the reason for the 808 here in the name. So again, early in 2020, when we first went under COVID lockdown, I began hearing and seeing things about Asia and taking screenshots like the one you see in front of you, and hearing and remembering from my life after life that they were the next ones that were supposed to be in charge of the Creator's power, or in charge of breaking him down. So this was the way that Prince used to get across to us these messages, along with the lyrics and everything that I share on TikTok and everything. You guys, this was a breakdown. It's why opioids were used as the antagonist for Prince Rogers Nelson's death. He was a pawn for the MK Ultra program. He allowed himself to be tortured and used contractually in such a way as to bring us this information, specifically me, so that I could bring it to the world. It's the reason why when Joe Biden was sworn in as the 46th president, 9/4 is the opposite of 4/6. And it's also the reason for his Build Back Better. I'm not going to bother to try to explain this to anyone right now. However, it's just English and Hebrew and the numeric codes. But when you get down here and you see that the 666, I just can't explain it. But for those of you that are following the gematria, just so that you know, I do my work. I can't really get into all this right now because it'll take away from the video. It's too hard to explain. Alas, I will try. The top row is the English alphabet. Below, its numeric equivalent, A through Z, 1 through 26. Below that, what you see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 8, 3, 5, 1, 1, 2, etc. That is the Latin alphabet gematria cipher. When you consider this gematria Latin shortcut here, for each letter that I was just showing you, that's the numeric equivalent that I put there. So notice that where the 6 is, it's UVW. So again, back to the board, A through Z, 1 through 26, and then the third line down is representative of that Latin gematria, which I just showed you. So what's really interesting and telling you guys is the fact that the first 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 8, and then 3, 5, 1 is the opposite. Actually, like I said, I can't explain this right now, but where Minnesota is where you get 13 and 14, the code for Minnesota. You can get 808 in there, and then when you get down here where the UVW is, that's where the 666 is, which I wanted to relate to Biden's Build Back Better. So it's all part of this code that I can't take the time to explain all of it on these videos, and I probably shouldn't even. The other thing that I want to show to you is this name Merovingian that we've been talking about, the 13th Merovingian bloodline. Extending back to the prior to Sion, the secret order which created the Knights Templar, Freemasonry, all kinds of stuff, and goes back to the what they call Le Grand Monarch, indicate that this sovereign will ultimately derive from a Merovingian bloodline. They believe that the Mashiach would be from this Merovingian bloodline, and it makes sense with what I was told and what I share on my TikTok about Prince trying to expose to us these bloodlines, because he's like half and half the way that I understand it, but he's protecting us as we are all his precious children. And what is a king without subjects? And we need to recognize who he is, and that's why I'm working so hard to bring you this information. Something about the name I want to bring your attention to, several somethings, but the first something is right here where there's the IGI. In the name and in the numerics, you could see that as a 191 or as a pi. Couldn't you? Yes, you could. It could be a 1916. It could be an ID 19. Consider that Prince's alleged assistant, Marone Bakure, was missing all the time. But that's why her name was Marone, because it was a code name. It was all part of the breakdown. Now what you see here, 3312, the M is the 13th letter, or a 3 on its side. So it's a 3. The E is the third, represents a 3 in reverse. So it's 33. And then the R is 12, 3312. So Merovingian or America, it's still code for 3121, which is why always trying to tell us breakdown.
Ready, 121. Ready, 121. You can come if you want to, but you can never leave.